Hello, good afternoon, Land Talker TV subscribers. Jim Rothermich here, Iowa Appraisal, also partner with Land Hero. It's a Good Friday and it's kind of a rainy afternoon here in Des Moines. I've got a really good guest today. I'll introduce him here in a minute, but I do want to talk about Land Hero. Land Hero is a way for somebody to access sales. My actually you get into my comp sales comps, and it's you can either buy a subscription statewide, or you can buy a specific county, or you can buy a crop region. Um, and why is that important? Well, if you're going into an auction and you need to know where the market's at, you've got to have high quality sale comp data. Um, so that's one reason why you could get it. If you're an appraiser, if you're a realtor, if you're a banker that does in-house appraisals, that is a very good tool to have. And so, um, Land Hero is a very good tool for those. Let me get that website up here. So here's the website to Land Hero. And so it has it's an awesome resource for you if you need high quality land sales and quickly. It'll allow you to say analyze sales very fast. And we keep this up every week. And so and here's all the companies that subscribe to us. And so if you want to have it, watch a demo, there's a place to click on there. And I work with Stephen Brockshus on this. And so, get on the website, landhero.com and our I'm sorry, landhero.us. Sorry about that. Um, with Land Talker TV, if you're watching it, make sure and hit the like button, hit the subscribe, leave a comment, and please do that. Today, I've got a really good young realtor here in Iowa, Luke Nissen from United Country Hawkeye Farm Management. He lives in Albia, Iowa. He sells farms all over the state, and so he's graciously accepted my invitation to be on Land Talker TV today. Welcome to Land Talker TV, Luke. How you doing today?
Good, Jim. Thanks for having me. Appreciate the invite.
Absolutely, Luke. And you're down in Albia, and we just talked before the show started, talking about how much rain you've had. You guys were dry down there, but you've gotten some rain here the past couple of days, right?
Yeah, we have. I well over an inch, and I was just back at our family farm doing some a little bit of tillage work, prepping around some field edges and stuff a couple days ago, and we got rained out there as well. And it's not going to hurt my feelings if it just slowly trickles in for a week. I think
Yeah,
everywhere's been pretty dry.
no doubt about it. We got to get those profiles recharged, and if we can get that done, we can handle some dry weather. So yeah, it's dry. I've heard numerous people across the state talk about, we need some rain, and so we're getting it right now. So Luke, why don't you kind of introduce yourself to our subscribers and just kind of go from there?
Yeah, my name's Luke Nissen. I grew up on a family farm in western Iowa. Audubon is the town, half hour south of Carroll and half hour north of Atlantic. My brother and I are fifth generation in a farming family. Our dad farmed full time, started right out of high school, and our grandpa actually went to college for about 2 weeks, and then he packed it up and headed back home to the farm. But um, so raised on a row crop farm, we actually farrowed sows when I was young, and my dad and grandpa both fed feeder cattle. Spent a lot of time going to the sale barn, buying 5 and 6 weight steers and feeding them to 1150 to 1250 typically. Um, After high school, well, actually, I told my parents I was not going to go to college, and they looked at me kind of funny and said, "No, you're going to school somewhere." So I went to Northwest Missouri State after
Yeah,
high school.
cool.
Uh, Go Bearcats!
Yeah.
And they were afraid I was actually going to drive home right when I got to college. They didn't think I was going to stay there. So my first month and a half at school, I didn't have a vehicle.
Oh,
Um, Actually, I wasn't sure, what I was going to do when I went to college. And the first semester, I decided I was going to go to school to be a game warden.
okay.
After a semester of classes, they pretty much told me to end up with a job. I was going to have to do internships in the summer, pretty much with no pay. And that wasn't going to work out for this guy because I had a pickup payment.
Yeah,
So I
right.
switched I switched over to ag business. Started working for a gentleman down at college, just doing some odd jobs, and he was actually a real estate broker in Missouri, and he was going to be getting his Iowa license. And after spending some time with him, he said, you'd be pretty good at doing real estate. You're really involved in the hunting and the farming, and you know the land. So my sophomore year of college, the second semester, I decided to get my real estate license. Um, so I got that when I was 20 years old, and I was taking 18 credits that semester at college as well. And I wouldn't recommend doing both of those at the same time to anybody, but I made it through it.
Yeah.
So this is my 14th season with a real estate license. I was with I've been with United Country, I believe, since 2015 or 2016, and in 2018 is when I ended up joining up with the Ammons family's office. I had moved to Albia right after college with an internship and then a full time job doing video work and editing for online hunting. And during that time, spending time around here, I met with this family and worked a couple deals with them in real estate. And they're just good stand-up people and very trustworthy, and really treated me like family, even when I wasn't licensed with their office. So I've been hanging my hat here since 2018, and it's been a really good working relationship. Um, I guess when it comes to sales, I kind of travel all over. The pickup truck's the office. I've had farms listed on the Missouri border, and I was just up looking at one close to Minnesota the other day. So, to present date, I think I've helped out clients in 31 different counties in the state, and just continuing to provide a good service. And if it's a client that I think I can really help out, I'm not afraid to get in the pickup and drive quite a ways to help them.
Yeah, sure, sure. Well, I tell you what, Luke, I did not know you went to Northwest Missouri State. I'm surprised by how many people from Iowa go to that. I mean, there is a lot of people from Southwest Iowa and West Central Iowa, what just Western Iowa that go to school there. I'm always amazed by how many people go down there.
Yeah, no, it's when I was there, I think actually from my graduating high school class, there were four or five of us that ended up going there. Um, I ended up getting an ag business degree there, and they are a really good ag school. My brother graduated from Iowa State University with an engineering degree, and I kind of fell in love with the little smaller setting and less students, I guess you could say.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I know they have some good sports teams there too. And I think the coach at Iowa was an old Northwest Missouri coach at one time. Do I have that right?
You do. He was
Yeah,
actually there. He was the men's boys coach when I was in school there, and they won a few championships,
yeah, yeah.
Division two.
And that was basketball, but football, I think they even
Oh
had
yeah,
more success with state or championships there. So
yeah.
yeah, yeah, no, that's great. That's great. And one other thing that I heard that coach, that Iowa coach, who was at Northwest, he just took a job at North Carolina and the pay was like $100 million.
Oh wow.
Can you imagine that? Maybe you ought to talk to him about buying a farm.
Yeah, he would try to add something to his portfolio. It'd be a smart investment.
Yeah, yeah. So you was talking about, the Ammons family and their Hawkeye Farm Management and real estate company there. Talk about when they started there and how many agents they have and they're located in Albia too, right? Kind of
Yeah,
talk about that, how they started and how
yeah.
many
So
people work for them and what all they do there.
Alan Ammons was the founding broker, you could per se, of this office, and he was actually partnered with Lyle Seifering out of Oskaloosa in the late '80s. Um, and they have Hawkeye Real Estate there in Oskaloosa. But Alan's got quite an interesting story. I think he worked for Farmers National, he worked for Travelers. During a lot of different things that happened in the '80s, they had actually lost their farm during the '80s. And then he got a job with Travelers, I believe, going around trying to sell these farms back to the farmers that lost them. And at one point, he was out in California managing farms. It's quite an interesting story, but good family. Alan's not as much as active in the business anymore. Nate and Ryan, the two boys, are taking it over and doing a really good job of it. So this office has been running since 1989. And then we're a United Country franchise. There's about 500 offices across the United States, and they've been going since 1926. So um, a good partnership there as well, as far as national reach and networking and all that good stuff. Um, the office, I would say we probably have about a dozen agents roughly, and half of those are just land specific agents. Some of them work certain smaller core areas. Some of them, like me, travel farther across the state or have a little wider reach, you could say.
Sure. And so deer hunting's a big deal there, right? With the Ammons family and you too, isn't that right? Because I drive
Oh,
through
yeah.
Albia and I see all those deer stands for sale there.
Yeah, it is. This is recreational land is a very big part of the landscape down in this area. And most people are pretty serious and really enjoy to get out there and get after it. And yeah, the office actually sells blinds, and that's a good deal, good partnership. A lot of people that end up buying farms through us need a deer blind or two, or know a friend that needs one, so we're able to help them out in that regard.
Sure, sure. And so they also manage farms, right, Luke?
Yes, they've been managing farms for certain clients for a long time. It is, I don't think at this point they're actively pursuing more management clients, but there is a little bit of that goes on.
Sure, sure, sure. And um, so you live there, and so you go all. It sounds like you go all over the state. Does that office just carry that area around Monroe County, or do they go all over the state, or can you kind of speak to that?
I would say most of the agents in this office are, covering the southern two tiers of Iowa, probably 8 to 10 county radius per se,
Uh-huh.
for the most part. Um, I'm just so used to traveling, going home with the farm work and stuff. I bounce back and forth. It's just me and my dad and brother doing all the farm work, operations work, and we run about 2,000 acres. So I'm just so used to driving that when people have called and wanted help with something, it's never bothered me to take off 2 hours and go look at a farm or try and help someone out.
Sure.
Um, Coming up here, things get really busy because I put half of our crop in, and then my dad and brother also custom spray, and then I help with all of the harvest in the fall. It gets to be a little bit of a three-ring circus here coming up.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, um, well, that's interesting. I'm sure that was kind of a jolt to the system to go to from western Iowa down to southeast Iowa, wasn't it, Luke? Because you've got that lowest soil over there in western Iowa, and that's really good stuff. And maybe it's not so good over there in Monroe County and getting further south in the Davis County, Appaloosa counties. Kind of talk about that adjustment.
Yeah, it's especially in terms of being able to get in the field after a rain and stuff like that. It just the different soil types from different parts of the states. It's amazing which ones will dry out quicker. We can get an inch of rain up home and an inch of rain down here in southern, southeast Iowa, and I swear it dries out twice as fast on the stuff we farm up home.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I figured as much, and then it probably has better water holding capacity there too, and you can handle a drought better. Isn't that right?
Yeah, yeah. No, when I first came down to this country, it was a big culture shock because I'm just used to open fields, terraces, and a tree row here and there, and you get down into some of these areas, and you can run into big, massive blocks of timber, and it's just like two different worlds.
Yeah, right, 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 right. And so, uh, so as far as like, just here lately, you went to the national conference there, the Realtors Land Institute,
Yep.
down in San Antonio, Texas. I was planning on going, but something come up. I had to go to drainage district meeting, so I had to cancel out. Uh, but that, you're a Realtors Land Institute member. You're a ALC, which stands for Accredited Land Consultant. Um, Talk about, your membership to RLI and why that's important to you and
Yeah.
your ALC designation. Talk about that. And then let's talk about your annual conference that you just attended just a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, certainly. Um, I think I've been a member of the Realtors Land Institute for the past 4 years, I believe. And I started going to some of the meetings, and I've, I've been really blessed in the business. There's been a few seasoned veteran, I guess you could say, brokers that have kind of taken me under their wing and said, hey, given me a little guidance or said, hey, this is something you should look into. And two of my very dear friends, John Yelm and Gary Hubble, Gary out there in Colorado, when I became a member, they said, you really need to get your accredited land consultant. And at first, I kind of thought, yeah, I don't know, it sounds like a lot of work, but they were right. I just going to the Iowa meetings, I think it's really important to me just because I've gotten to meet more agents and brokers on a more personal level, you could say, than just business. And when you're able to have or know a little bit about something and have a connection with them, it just builds a better degree of trust. Um, and down the road, some of these agents I have not put deals together with, but down the road, I know for a fact, just because I know someone and trust them, it's gonna be a benefit to potentially helping out buyers and sellers, being able to put our brains together, and work out problems and situations for the better good. And it's just, I think, to me, the most important thing with the Realtors Land Institute is building relationships and making connections. I'm actually serving as vice president for the Iowa chapter this year, and getting the accredited land consultant designation. There's some criteria to it. There's quite a bit of education classes that you need to take. You have to take a final exam, put a portfolio together, showing a track record with a certain amount of volume of just land sales. And then you have to get some recommendation letters written from other ALCs, and they need to express why you would be a good candidate for it. But um, I would encourage anybody out there that is focused on selling land, get involved uh, with your state chapter at a minimum. Go to the meetings, meet more agents, build connections, just increasing your network, and it's only going to benefit being able to help serve your clients better down the road.
Absolutely, absolutely, Luke. That's true. And for full disclosure, I belong to the Realtors Land Institute as well, and I'm a ALC. One of the benefits I picked up, one of the biggest benefits is the networking opportunities. And
Yeah.
so, once a month, the Iowa chapter, they put out they have a Zoom call, and all the realtors that have time get on there and just talk about what's happening in their area. And I get a lot of that, a lot of benefit out of that, just hearing what's going on, hearing about, some land deals that either was highly successful or maybe wasn't so successful and the reasons why. And so that's the benefit I see, the biggest benefit. And that's why I joined is to have that networking opportunity with realtors.
Yeah.
And it seems like, that ALC designation gives you a level of professionalism above people that don't have it. I have had customers, that require, as far as on the appraisal side, they say, you have to either be an MAI designation or maybe an ARA designation. And so I've got both. And and I'm sure probably as a sales agent, I don't sell real estate, but there could be people that require, I want an ALC to do this deal because they expect a high level of professionalism.
Yeah. And the other thing too on the side of it is there's always different newer classes coming out. What I've gathered is from most of the people involved with the organization, they want to learn more. They want to try and attend classes to learn things so they can better serve their clients. And I just think it's a really good deal. And I hope the Iowa chapter, I think we have around 120 members roughly right now, and I hope that continues to grow.
Sure, sure. Now I'm sharing the screen with the National Land Conference on the RLI website. Talk about, what happened there. That was March 21st to the 24th, and anything you picked up or anything that you heard from other realtors that you'd be willing to share.
Yeah. So this year was in San Antonio. It was the 20th anniversary, and actually the very first one was held in San Antonio. It was a really neat atmosphere. Um, Record attendance, I think over 700 people attended, and about 100 of those weren't even registered. People just showed up. So things were a little frantic for the staff figuring out what to do. But no, it was a really cool thing to see. There was a lot of great speakers, a lot of good topics. Um, One of the main topics, I guess, is AI is such a big thing right now, and people are you know figuring out different ways to streamline and be more effective and get different tasks done at their business. And I learned quite a bit on that from some speakers and other agents. But with all that being said, Jim, I think people still are going to want to work with people at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely. That face to face is a big deal. It's still going to be a big deal going forward. I tell you what, I like some of the stuff I'm seeing with AI. I think it's going to make us more efficient, but like you said, it's still, face to face interaction with people, no doubt. No
yeah,
doubt. No doubt. Is as far as like the Iowa chapter RLI puts out a survey every 6 months, and so they survey realtors across the state of Iowa, and you can go to the Iowa chapter of RLI website and get this. They put out a printout. It's a press release. So the last one that went out in March, and indicated 1.6% increase in market conditions statewide. I've been, beating a drum um, since last fall that this market's very strong,
yeah,
and so they kind of backed up what I've been saying. Now my data indicated on just pure auction data. We was up 3.6% in the month of, or the year of 2025, but RLI went in the first 3 months of this year, and I think the market's got a little stronger. Um, so you want to talk about what your thoughts are on that increase in market conditions and why? One other thing I want to point out, I think I read where the Chicago Federal Reserve did their survey with bankers, and Iowa was up 7% in their survey from last year. Now, that's a high number. I don't know if I agree with that, but the trend is the market's getting stronger. How can that be with high input costs? Fertilizer costs are higher than they've ever been. Just speak to that, Luke. Just tell me your thoughts.
Yeah, I don't know about the 7%, but I would, I can't see anything necessarily different than the 1.6%. I do know when I was at the spring seminar RLI up there in Ankeny that they did show, the map of the state, and it did kind of show the quadrants in the center of the state where had held about the same, and then over on the east and west side of the state had showed the increase. And I honestly, Jim, I think a lot of that has to do with livestock production.
Yep.
um, Things have been very, very good for the cattle guys. Hogs surprisingly are doing decent. These guys need places to go with their manure. And when livestock's doing well, I think those people are more apt to spend money. Um, it didn't seem to me, and that isn't as surprising, I guess, because I think last quarter of last year and first quarter of this year, I think there was quite a bit more sales just from what I saw than earlier in the year. And certainly that amount of volume numbers could help drive things up from that survey.
I'm sharing the screen for that press release from the Iowa chapter of the RLI. So if anybody wants to access that, it's just the Iowa chapter, Realtors Land Institute. Just put that in your Google search
Yeah.
bar, and then you can find it there. So, um,
Yeah, Matt and Rebecca put a lot of thanks to them because they spend a lot of time, collecting all this data from everybody's surveys and putting it all together. So just giving them a little shout out for their time and effort.
absolutely, that's a lot of work, no doubt about it.
Work.
Luke, I agree that the livestock guys are making money. Hog guys are making money now, and the cattle guys are really, really doing good. And you see it show up in those auctions up there in northeast Iowa, where there's cattle heavy, and northwest Iowa, where they're cattle heavy. It's showing up. There's no doubt about it. A lot of farms, selling for upper teens, crossing over to 20,000. Sioux County just keeps cranking out those farms north of, $20,000 an
Yeah.
acre consistently. And then, this past week, there was an auction down in Louisa County, and this farm is an 80-acre farm. It sold for $21,050 an acre. That was a record in that county.
Yeah.
I was like, holy cow, that doesn't happen down there. So how can we be having these high prices, setting price records in counties, the past 6 months when the farm economy is said to be not that good? Can you explain that?
I think what it comes down to is I don't know the exact number, but a very, very large percentage of Iowa land is owned free and clear. And I
Yep.
think I think people are able to leverage that equity and be able to roll it into a new purchase. Just I end up working in a lot of areas that are very tightly held.
Right,
And
right.
some of these
You're from that area.
I'm from one of those areas. I can drive around a lot of places in my county and on one hand pick out the farms that have actually changed hands in my lifetime. And
Yep.
when stuff only changes hands every 60 to 100 years and it comes up for sale next to a neighbor that's been dreaming of buying it since they're 5 years old or 10 years old, and now they're 70 and have the ability to do it, a lot of them are going to do whatever it takes to get it.
Yep, that's right. That's right. And you're from an area
Yeah.
there in west central Iowa. Those farms are very tightly held. It's hard to do appraisals over there because there's so few sales
Yeah.
that are arm's length. Now, yeah, you can find some sales that are between families, but I don't use those sales because of family pricing. So, yeah, that makes a difference. I think. Maybe Luke, I think I'm not saying there's not an issue out here with the economy, but I think maybe the news press has maybe over exaggerated it some. That's before all this has happened and with Iran, because
Yeah.
I don't think anybody knew fertilizer prices were going to skyrocket like they have because of that. So I think, there's some farmer payments going out. I think that's also adding optimism to the market. One trend I'd like to say, share with you, Luke, is, I keep track of all the land auctions in Iowa. And, at the end of the year, I had the volume, the number of acres sold at auction in Iowa, and it's been trending lower every year. Since 2022. 2022 was the peak. And so I said, hey, this is just going to continue. Um, but I sent out my newsletter in March, and I added up how many farms were sold in the first quarter. It was almost 12, or it was well, it was 20 some thousand acres. But what amazed me, it was second place of since I've been keeping track of it. So the trend has started to go back up. And so I think it's because there's so much optimism out here in the marketplace, is
Yeah.
why some of these farms are starting to come to the market. Last year at this time, talking to realtors, they were saying, this trade, uh, these tariffs and trade has got people shook up and they're thinking about selling, but they're wanting to wait until they see what happens, how this thing shakes out. That doesn't seem to be the case right now. How is, your listings, phone calls coming in? I'm hearing from realtors that they're running out of inventory because they get something listed and it sells. Can you
Yeah.
speak to that?
Well, I think what we're running into now, Jim, is 21 through 23. There was so much on the market.
There was.
There was just so much inventory all the time. Everywhere you look, any county, there was a lot of farms for sale.
Yep.
And I think, we've gotten to the point where there's just less to choose from. And there's a lot of people that want to own land.
Yep. Yep.
And I think that's what it comes down to. When we went through the 80s, and guys were losing farms or whatever, the farmers were mainly the ones buying the farms. And I think it's been ingrained in people's brains for so long that owning land is a really smart investment, that I really think most of the general public out there, everybody wants to own a property,
Yep.
own a
Yep.
farm.
Yep. And I totally agree with you. And I watch those metal markets, gold and silver, and they're, on fire. And I always compare land to gold. It's separate, it's black and it has a dividend. So I call land black gold with a dividend.
Mm-hmm.
Um, to me, as long as those markets are strong, so land's going to be right in there doing the same thing, irrelevant to what other things are happening in the farm economy. Fertilizer prices and kind of this downturn in the ag economy, that's just short term. Land prices land purchases are made with, how do I want to say, long term, based on long term economics,
Yeah.
and that's what those decisions are on. And to me, Luke, everybody knows the future's bright for farmland. So, yeah, there's some short term pain right now, but long term, it's still going to be a good asset to have, no doubt about it.
Yeah. I think there's just talking to a lot of people, I've heard a lot of optimism and going forward here. I think there's going to be some good things coming. We know how these grain markets do. They come in waves, they go down, they come up. And I think we're getting ready to turn. I could be wrong, but I think we're getting to turn into some really good times. Especially if, crude oil barrels stay above $100 a barrel. If that does that for long, we might hopefully see $6 corn again. That'd make me smile.
Right, right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Now you kind of deal with some of that recreational land. I've had people ask me talk more about recreational land because most of the time I'm talking about crop ground. If you
Yeah,
want to talk about, how that is, how's the demand for recreational land? I'm talking land that maybe doesn't have any income on it,
yeah.
or very little income. Kind of speak to that.
Well, there's certainly still buyers out there for it.
What type of buyers are there? Tell me about those types of buyers that you see.
Well, a lot of them are people that want a place to invest money and like to go deer hunting or turkey hunting or pheasant hunting or whatnot. People like me that would rather stick it into land than the stock market because you can go out and enjoy it. You can't shoot a rooster pheasant on the stock market.
That's right. That's right.
But
Absolutely.
no, there's still a lot of buyers out there. It's kind of people are looking for the right deal. Rec farms with specific attributes, whether a certain amount of timber or if it sets up well for archery hunting, if it's got pinch points that'll bottleneck deer down. Can they put in food plots? What wind direction can they access the farm from? So, you know, 21 through 23, when everyone was getting 3%, you know, loans on 30-year fixed, you know, there was just buyers out of the woodwork looking to buy anything. And now it seems like there's still plenty of buyers if a farm's priced right from the recreational side of things, but it has to have a certain set of criteria that they're really looking for. So,
Sure.
but
Sure.
if the market is very active, and I will say from the rec side of things, it's kind of a tough time managing expectations. For the seller compared to what some things were selling for 2 years ago.
So it's just down from the peak,
Yeah.
but maybe those sellers don't realize that. They still have
Yeah.
those big numbers in their head.
Yeah. Because here's just some stats I'll run through. This was sitting through National Land Values report down at the National Land Conference. Um, and this is stuff you already know and I already know, but the peak values hit in 2023, up 35 to 40%, and they're saying down 10 to 15 the last 2 years. Here's an interesting fact that I learned sitting in the seminar. In the Midwest, they're projecting 2026 through 2029, 12 million acres are projected to change hands, 2.5 million of them in Iowa alone. And they're saying that 86% of the owners in Iowa are 55 years and older, and half of those are 75 and older. So there's a prediction that 60% of farms will change hands in the next 20 years.
Yeah. Wow. That's amazing. That's amazing.
Those are big numbers.
They are. And most of those auctions that I report on are their estates.
Yeah.
So absolutely. And that's what I think part of it is increasing this trend of auction volume is estates. And it seems like when people inherit those farms, if there's, several owners involved, or they just want to sell it
Yeah.
and
Yep.
get and divide the cash up. And so as you get more owners to a farm, the likelihood of them to get along goes down as you increase the number of owners. So definitely why. And the prices are so high. I mean, there's so many multimillionaires here in Iowa that own, 120, 240 acres of land. Just they're multimillionaires.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So, do you have like in your area down there, do you have those Amish buyers down there? Luke, do you want to kind of speak to that? How are they at buying farms right now? Are they, or is there some moving in still? Are they still moving in, or can you just speak to that a little bit?
There's quite a few different areas that have them, and I don't know all the specifics. I've sold some farms to them. I've sold some farms to Mennonites as well. Um, it seems like they have to be, in a specific certain location, as far as if they're going to be living on it. But we've had our office. We've sold just recreational deer hunting farms to Amish guys that are as hardcore as they get about whitetail management, and they do buy a lot of land. And um, I believe it or not, I had an online auction last year, and an Amish bought on an online auction.
Yeah,
So
that's
they're
funny.
able to, if they're interested in owning a piece of ground, they'll figure out a way to have somebody bid but yeah, they're very active in a lot of different areas in the southern part of Iowa. And um, I haven't dealt with them a lot, but a handful of times, I guess you could say.
Well, I know they're players down southern Iowa, and as I drive across southern Iowa and northern Missouri, 20 years ago there wasn't hardly any, but by God, there is now. There's a lot of them down there, and
Mhm.
and you're right, they'll pay up for ground. I was talking to an auctioneer. He had an auction in January, and in Johnson County, Iowa, which is Iowa City,
Yeah.
and that farm, I can't remember what it was, but it was a really high price. And so I was asking the auctioneer, I was confirming the sale, and I was asking him, like, was it a joining landowner that he paid that much for it? And he's like, no, it was an Amish guy. So I was like, wow, holy cow, that's pretty good for an Amish guy. So that another point, even they're willing to pay up for land. So now, Luke, tell me about, if somebody wants to sell a farm, tell me what your process is. Tell me, take me from the beginning to end. And yet you do auctions. A lot of your stuff is listings, but you also do auctions. So
Mhm.
go through both scenarios from beginning to end.
Yeah, so I guess the first thing is when somebody calls, my main thing is I want to figure out, who's involved, what are the goals, what's your timeline, and then from there just explaining each different process and giving my input of what the better option would be for their sale depending on the circumstances. And then I guess from there is just finding the comparables in the area to try and manage expectations. And then um, obviously the auction process and getting all that marketing ready and out the door, 35 to 45 days ahead of the sale is a little different than just putting the listing up live, and letting people come and go as they please if they're interested. Um, do you have any, I guess, specific type questions on that, Jim?
Well, talk about your auctions. You work with John Yelm, I think, on
Yeah.
that. Just and so like you had some auctions here not too long ago. Did those clients specifically ask to have an auction, or did you say, I think this property is a good auction property, and explain why? Kind of go through that, Luke.
Yeah, honestly, most of the auctions, actually all the auctions that I do, I recommend to the family, this is your best method of sale. It's, if it's this is a one-time sale for your family, and really what it's going to come down to me are two different things: the quality of the farm and in the location or neighborhood where it's located. I mean, those two things. If it's a quality farm, that's definitely the route we go. And another thing too is if there's, you know, CRP farms, those can be a little tough at auction, I think, just because most of your buyers want to get in there and plant their own crop.
Right.
But yeah, I dealt with several clients. They've never even heard of a farm auction. They're familiar with a car auction or a household item auction, but you'd be surprised. Some of these people um, have never heard of it being done with land, and just taking the time to walk them through it and explain to them, and then kind of the light bulb will click on, and they'll say, yeah, I can see why you're saying that's going to be the best method of sale for us. But no, working with John has been a really good working relationship. He's always been a straight shooter, and he does what he says he's going to do. He does, and likewise. And we've had a good working relationship, and I think we've done a really nice job on some different sales that we've teamed up on.
Yeah. John Young is a common friend between me and Luke, and he is out of Spencer, Iowa. So he has a gavel and he will travel. So
I th-
he helps Luke with his auctions. He cries his auctions.
yeah, I think his first one was in 1983, I believe.
Yeah.
So he's
Yeah.
been having fun a while.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, what do you think, just real quick, Luke, how do you think the market's going to look going forward as we get through the summer and you know, really auction activity falls off starting now as we start planting season.
Yeah,
It's starting to slow down. And then it's going to kind of be off up until August, and then it'll start kind of cranking back up again. And then September we'll have a few more, and then October people slow down a little bit to get through harvest. But then November and December, those are
yeah,
that's go time for land auctions. So
yeah.
kind of tell me what your prediction is going forward.
I think I get. I think things are going to continue just to stay about where they are.
Uh-huh.
I think we're going to continue seeing solid sales. Um, just the amount of people that want to own ground and are aware of that owning land is a really good thing. I don't think we'll ever see like we did in the 80s where things dropped
Right.
down to 50%.
Right.
I don't think it'll ever happen again.
Yeah, I
Um,
don't think so either. I
Even
don't
if
think.
things at times appear a little tough on the farming operation side of things, but um, I think this summer into fall, I think things are going to continue to look good and optimistic, and I think people are going to be willing to spend money for farms. That's my opinion.
Right. Right. I thought I was going to sneeze there. Oh,
But
sorry
yeah,
about that. Sorry about
it
that.
it makes sense why Q4 and Q1 are the hot times for selling farms. It's the easiest really in between growing seasons. But
Sure. Sure. When do you think the best time is to sell a farm?
oh man, I think late winter, early spring. Yeah, and when I mean early spring, I mean uh, prior to March.
Right. That's when most of them happen. So
Yeah,
sure,
yeah.
sure, sure. Yeah, yeah. Um, now Luke, um, what do you think about the cattle market? Is that thing gonna cool off or is it gonna be strong for a while? What can you just kind of speak to that a little bit?
I think it's going to continue here as long as the grain prices remain about where they're at. It's making, you know, there's a reason why back in the day most of these working farms had livestock and grain, because when one was doing good, the other wasn't as much, and it would
Right,
do this, and one
right.
of them would carry you through the year. But I firmly believe if we get to a point where corn and beans take off, I think it might flip things over on the livestock side of things. That's my
Yeah,
prediction.
yeah.
When, I don't know. Um,
I
it's
let
been
go
Oh,
ahead.
go ahead.
No, I listened to somebody today on social media that said they paid $1,600 for a bucket calf. Can you imagine that?
No, I can't because my brother and I were buying them for about 200 bucks when we were younger.
Yeah. So, to feed that calf out to finish, you imagine how expensive that's going to be if corn prices would go up. I mean, it's expensive now.
Yeah,
That puts a lot of costs there. Um, so yeah, I think what amazes me about this cattle thing is those beef prices are crazy high. I'm going to buy a steer this fall. I'm dreading the cost of it, um, but I'm going to do it anyway. But as long as people are still buying beef, there's no doubt about it.
yeah,
Those prices are not phasing them. And so as long as we still have that, I don't see it changing. It could get hotter if corn prices go down and there's more margins there with feeding cattle. So, um, Luke, what do you do for fun? Tell me about what do you do for fun?
well, for fun, I like to spend some time archery hunting deer and pheasant hunting with my German short hair. Believe it or not, just doing work on the farm is pretty fun for me anymore. I really like working with my dad and brother. Um,
And I was gonna, me and in full disclosure, me and Luke, we bird hunted together, and I was gonna pull those pictures up. Let's see, can you see that?
yeah, I can see it.
Those birds, me and John and Gary and I can't think of the other guy's name. Can you see that?
Yep.
Okay, so this is a bird hunt. Let's see, it was in late or maybe early January, or late December, early January. And so this is me on the right side, John Yelm, Gary Hubble, and I can't think of that guy's name on it. He's an attorney up there in Sioux City. And so this is our bird hunt this winter. And so we had a good time. There's Luke right there with a bird. And there's Gary Hubble with his golden or yellow lab, and
Yep.
there's Luke with his dog. What's your dog's name, Luke?
Maverick.
Maverick. Yep, yep. And that's one of my farms right there that we had hunted. It's a CRP farm in Palo Alto County, and there's Luke and John Yelm and Gary Hubble's son there, and there's some of the birds we killed, and so. That was our one of our hunts this winter. So good times for sure. Good times. Luke, if somebody wants to sell a farm, tell me how do they get a hold of you? Tell me what they got to do to sell a farm through you. Tell me about that.
All they got to do is dial up my phone number and call me, Jim.
All right. Well, tell me what that is. Do you want to share that or not?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. If you want to get a hold of me, my number is 712-304-4827. Otherwise, someone can send me an email. That happens quite a bit too. People inquire just through email, and that's pretty simple. It's Luke, Luke, at uciowa.com. And if someone tries to call, 95% of the time I'm working, so I'll probably answer.
Yeah, good, good. Well, that's a big deal. And uh, well, thank you for being on Land Talker TV today, Luke. And I wish you success in planting season. And there's that's go time. Go time is almost here. Probably when it dries out, it's going to be go time. So,
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you for having me, Jim. One common quick note here. We had a lot of fog days in December.
uh-huh.
90 days after this next week, 2 weeks, I think we're going to have a lot of rain.
Is that right?
Yep.
Well, I was just at the Iowa Ag Bankers Conference, and one of those weather guys did a presentation, and he was talking about it seems like we're going to be set up for an El Nino weather pattern this summer. And so typically that's good for raising corn and beans.
Yeah.
Um, so that, so you're saying that's an old, uh,
Old farmer wise tale.
is that there was fog in December and then, say that again?
If there's a bunch of fog days in December, 90 days after, you're going to have a bunch of rain days.
Okay. Well, we'll
And
find
then,
out. We're starting it right now.
yeah, we're about there. Then another one too is if it rain, and this I can attest to this. I think it was it 2 or 3 years ago. I can't remember. If it rains on Easter Sunday,
That's right.
it'll rain the next 7 Sundays, and that happened 2 or 3 years ago. I
Yep.
can't remember which one.
Yep. Yep. Well, being from Missouri like I am, man, did we want it to rain on Easter Sunday because that meant we was going to get some rain because it would just get so dry down there. Now they've got different weather patterns down there now, and they don't get as dry, but they still get extreme drought whenever it happens. It does happen.
Yeah.
All right, very good. Well, Luke, thank you for being on the show today, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks, Jim. Appreciate the opportunity.